This is the Beyond Barriers Unscripted podcast. That was a language barrier, you know. It wasn't really about vision loss.
Hello and welcome to a special episode of the Beyond Barriers Unscripted podcast. I'm your host, Brandie Kubel. Randy has asked me to help him answer some questions for tonight's Mission Moment as presented to the Board of Directors for Society for the Blind. Good evening, Randy. How are you?
Doing well, Brandie. Thank you very much for doing this.
My pleasure. Can you share with our listeners tonight what inspired you to start the Beyond Barriers Unscripted podcast?
When I was younger, I kind of always had a dream or an interest in working in audio production, doing like commercial production in radio. And when I started working at Society for the Blind, I noticed that a few of my students were musicians, and as a result of that, we started a music support group. And I just noticed something special with that, Beyond Barriers really came about, was kind of a name for the music support group. And the story is I found myself in the music room one day with one of the members, and he's from Dominican Republic and he speaks Spanish. He doesn't speak English, and I don't speak Spanish. And so that was a language barrier, It wasn't really about vision loss, even though we were both there because of vision loss. We happened to be in the same place. And when I started working at Society for the Blind, I just started noticing all this inspiration, and when I mean inspiration, I mean it made me want to do things that maybe I wouldn't have done before. And one of the things that I've really tried to, I think this happened over the last couple of years, is going back in life and realizing some of your dreams and pursuing that.
So what is your purpose, and what do you hope that your listeners will get from your podcast?
Okay. So the Beyond Barriers Unscripted podcast, it really simply is just a series of conversations that I have had with folks that are in the blind and low vision community. These are folks that I've invited on the show because in one way or another, they've inspired me. And I want to share that inspiration with others. It's really about telling the human side of the story, a guest at a time, and hopefully connecting with that listener and sharing some of that inspiration. I don't know what the listener is going to get from it. They may have a totally different experience than I've had, but I think if we stay true to that, I think that in itself has an appeal to the listener. Terrific.
Is your podcast intended for a specific audience?
I hope this is okay that I say this, but really anybody that's willing to listen to it, I want to connect to the human side of people. Yes, we are folks in the blind and low vision community, but it's really about that human connection, just like the music group is.
Great. And finally, where do you ultimately see this podcast going?
Recently I've been invited to guest on a couple other shows. This last year, the amount of content that's generated from the blind and low vision community is just blown up exponentially. So, where I'd like to see this go is I want to continue to develop my skills as an interviewer. Obviously, I want to reach a larger audience and again, just share the inspiration. I've got some interesting guests coming up. I don't spoil it, but I do always hope to keep this. I don't want to forget why I do this, and it's just simply to share that inspiration. And again, I think if I follow that, opportunity will present itself, and it's up to me if I'm going to take it.